Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on this Friday evening. I'm going to start with a bit of a panel, and then later on we have some drinks just across the way there. So if you'd like to stay with us, please do. If not, it's fine. I get it. It's a Friday. So this panel is all about creativity, about breaking the industry. We have some amazing panelists for you. Why don't we go along this way and introduce yourself and what industry you're from?
Hi, my name is Monki, and I work in the music industry.
Hi, I'm Savannah. I'm a photographer, fashion model, and co-founder of a magazine called Wave.
My name's Joshua Kane. I'm an independent fashion designer.
Oh, you're not going to introduce
Hi, I'm Maisie.
Hi, my name is also Savannah. I am a writer and a spoken word poet.
I'm Alex Jenkins, and I'm an illustrator.
Thank you guys for being here. Thanks for doing this. So I want to talk a little bit about breaking the industry, your early career, whether or not what you're doing right now is something that you always wanted to do, or whether you sort of discovered it through, trying different things, and just a little bit about breaking the industry and what that was like for you guys, what your break was.
So that was a bit of a rubbish introduction. I'm a DJ, and I don't make tea in the music industry, and I'm an A&R for Atlantic Records, and I'm a broadcaster on Radio 1 and 1Extra. So I actually went to college for a little bit, for about 6 months. I studied law and economics. Not my cup of tea. And I left, and I interned as much as I could for about 6 months to a year. And then I ended up getting a job at Rinse FM, which is a pirate station. It was a pirate station back in the day. And it got a community license about 2 years after me being there. I stayed there for 4 years. So I'd say Rinse FM was my first break. But what I actually wanted to do was play football, which is something I still do now, but didn't end up doing it for a job.
I started as a fashion model, and it wasn't really fulfilling me as much. So I kind of wanted to use the resources I had around me, use all the creative people I had around me. And I was always interested in photography. So I kind of did my research and self-taught myself. I bought a film camera, and I did my first shoot with a friend of mine who was a stylist, and it got submitted to an online platform, and it was my first ever shoot of a following of like 350k, so that was really good for me. And then since then I've just been kind of for shooting, and I ended up creating my own magazine, which I just shoot for now with my friend, and we shoot musicians and up and coming artists. So yeah.
So I have been in the fashion industry for about 14 years. I graduated from Kingston University studying fashion design. I then trained to be a bespoke tailor in my spare time with a cutter that worked on Savile Row, someone I actually met through university. And then through that got my first job in the industry after graduating, which I'm not sure what sort of position everyone is in the industry, but that first job is obviously your one when you graduate that you really, really want, because no one wants to finish university and then be jobless, because that's a pretty terrifying position to be in. Was lucky enough to get my first job, traveled to America, lived in New York designing for a company called Brooks Brothers, which is like very traditional men's formal wear. But as I said, it was my way in, and it was a great start. Then I came back to London and got a job for a company called Jaeger, British at the time, again, traditional sort of more menswear design. And then from that, got my next break for Burberry. So I was designing Burberry Prawsome, the runway collection. So I worked with Christopher Bailey for about 4 years, really working 7 days a week, traveling the world. Anyone who's a fashion designer, it was pretty much the best job in the universe you could absolutely imagine. Working specifically on menswear, kind of honing my skills, designing everything, doing shows and what have you, and just like pretty much living the fashion-y dream. And then from that, I got another break, and I went to work with Sir Paul Smith, and I was the senior menswear designer for 4 years. So then I was sort of worked my way up the ladder, running collections, designing fabrics, designing buttons, trims, international collections, working across runway collections as well, honing everything I'd learned for like the 6-7 years prior to that. Where I did 4 years, and then I decided to go it alone and have a go at it myself. So took a bit of a risk, huge risk, quit my job out the blue, went home to my house and started a company in my bedroom. called it after my own name. I had no investment, had no savings. I lived pretty fun lifetime at the time, going out, spending everything I earned. You know, I wasn't making a huge amount of money, but, you know, I enjoyed what I had. So I didn't prepare, didn't plan, and, you know, I sort of say that because you might be in a situation when you think, okay, I want to start my own business, how am I going to do it? But I was very lucky. I just took a risk, and I didn't have any investment or a huge amount of money to start from. I started on my own, and decided I was going to make suits for some of my friends. Always made my suits since I've been trained as a bespoke tailor. Always like to dress a little bit differently to everyone else, or have my own perspective on what tailoring is. And I started making suits for my friends who liked the way I looked, the way I cut suits, and then it kind of grew from there. 6 months later, I opened a little store in Spitalfield in Shoreditch, which did really well, and then I was there for 2.5 years, and then I've got a store in West London now, so I'm just behind Regent Street, so I've got 2 floors of a shop there, and that's a very quick overview, but it sounds really fun and glamorous, but it was 7 days a week with no holiday for 4 years. I literally just took my first holiday 2 weeks ago for the first holiday in 4 years, worked 7 days a week, and part of something really exciting, working with some amazing people, some super amazing collaborations, and it was a very unique perspective on how to get into the industry, but that's kind of an overview of what I do.
So you've obviously been doing this for a long while, but Savannah's got some really great news. Recently had her first book published, so if you could talk about the journey getting to that point, that'd be really great.
You messed up my joke. I was going to be like, I have not had nearly as many breaks. And then, so, well, I guess I'll back up a little bit. I'm American, and I was from a very, very small town in Ohio, and I was doing YouTube for a long time, and then before that, I was writing, so I've been writing since I was very young, and then it occurred to me to sort of combine the two, so I had this following on YouTube, and I've been writing, so I thought, well, I guess it makes sense to do, poetry, and I started posting spoken word poetry to YouTube, and the first one I put up was a bit of a crazy sensation, and I think it has 7 million views now, and overnight it was oh, this 17-year-old is dismantling the patriarchy or something like that. So it was of that nature, and then it was sort of Huffington Post and Upworthy, and everyone was really excited about it and got behind it, and then overnight I got 200,000 subscribers or something, and it was all very exciting. And then from there, I said, well, clearly this is going quite well. So I kept posting poetry, and then that sort of allowed me to cultivate an audience to the point where I self-published my first collection of poetry, which is called Graffiti, which sold 5,000 copies in the first week, which, if you know anything about lists and bestsellers, would have been enough to put it #1 on the New York Times bestseller list. I was just a girl in my university dorm room at the time, so that really wasn't in the cards, but it was all very crazy and very exciting. So I was at uni at the time. I was doing fashion management and marketing, actually. Got some competition over here. Yeah, so I was doing that.
I could do with some help.
Hey, I'm in my own industry. Yeah, I didn't love it, and I liked writing a lot more. And then it was just sort of a lucky coincidence that around that time, I had gotten a literary agent sort of off the back of Graffiti and off the back of my success there. And we pitched an idea to Penguin Random House, and they loved it, and they signed me, which was very exciting. They signed me a 2-book deal, so I've got this first one coming out in March, and then the next one in 2020. So yeah, I think that's me. Was that everything?
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm asking you.
Yeah, so I'm a freelance illustrator now, as I said, and I've been doing it for about 3 years. I went to Camberwell College of Arts in South London. Before that, I was pretty useless, actually. For the majority of my life, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I worked lots of menial jobs for a long time, and I knew that I was quite good at drawing when I was younger. And I always sort of thought, that couldn't be taken seriously. I'll never make any sort of money from that. So I think it was just not through pure boredom, but I was like, right, I need a change. I'm working in the supermarket on a trainee management scheme, and they've kind of kept me in the same position for the last 5 years. I need to make a change on this. So then I did an art foundation, and then that's what got me back into kind of choosing a course at Camberwell in illustration. And now, it seems to be going well. I've worked for clients like Vans, Vice, think Vice is what really like sort of launched me because they got such a big following. New York Times, BBC Three. Anyway, yeah, I don't want to like, name drop, but yeah, it's going well. Anyway, it's good.
Celebrate yourself. So I want to talk a little bit about getting paid within the creative world and the struggles that proposes, and moving forward with your careers, how you would like to see change, and how you think, obviously none of us can change the entire industry. Well, together we can. But but I think it would be really good to hear your thoughts on like maybe what might help with getting up and coming artists paid fairly for the work that they're doing, and yeah, as I said, struggles that you've faced in your own careers.
Personally, I think internships should be paid because I interned for almost a year. I was doing 3 internships Monday to Friday, and then Saturday, Sunday I was working at my dad's, pretty much labouring for the week, which sucked. And we didn't get paid. We got lunch money and we got travel money, and that was it, which I'm sure some of you are well aware of. And you're doing some of the jobs that some people are actually getting paid for, and it's a pain in the arse. And I do think they deserve to get paid, so I think that's a topic. But it's been a hot topic recently, definitely.
And how did you go from like intern to like getting paid? Like, what was that bridge?
So the first internships I did were Rinse, Ministry of Sound Radio, which doesn't exist anymore, and a TV production company called Lemonade Money, who specialise in sort of music content. Lemonade Money ended up actually paying me for my work at the end of it because I did a good job, which was really nice of them. They're still really good friends of mine, and I ended up doing a little bit of consultancy work for them afterwards as well, so I actually got a job out of that, a freelance job. And then Rinse, I ended up working for full time. So I was persistent, if anything. That was what got me paid. But, you know, working 7 days a week is sometimes not viable, you know, for everyone, anyway, especially in London.
I think we can all agree, like, being freelance is very hard. Like, I think it's about the amount of work you put in, and the grind work is what you're going to get back. Doing photography, like, I want to shoot the stuff that I want to shoot, and I find it's really hard to make money from that, especially editorial work. A lot of it's free. A lot of people do a lot of free work because it's easy for people to collab and do stuff that they want to do. I mean, even now, like, I'm still broke at some points. Do you know what I mean? I'm still trying to work and grind and make the most out of my craft. And I think it's just kind of putting in that work and really having a passion for it and working every day and trying out new things, like testing and failing. Yeah, that's like the advice I have. But even now, like, I'm still having struggles with it, and it's up and down. It's a roller coaster, especially when you're freelance.
I would agree with that, and I don't think it changes. I think there's a lot of preconceived conceptions. Everyone's like, oh, it's so difficult at the beginning to, you know, build up that network and get work. But in my experience, it doesn't get any easier. I think a lot of people kid themselves thinking, oh, you know, that first few years, they're the hardest. But the struggle's still there after 14, 15, 16, or, you know, people who have mentored me at times, they still have that struggle. The only difference is the bills get bigger. There's just more zeros at the end. But sometimes you're still broke, you know. You might be trying to order in 1 roll of fabric, or, you know, 2 seasons later, you're trying to order 20 rolls of fabric, but you still have to, the struggle's exactly the same. And I think no one really taught me that when I was at my younger point in my career. I just kept thinking, oh, I'll just get to that next bit will get easier. But if someone had told me it was never going to really change, but if I sort of changed my mindset earlier and accepted that the struggle was always going to be there, but how you adapt and how you deal with the pressure and how you deal with the stress, I wasn't really taught that at different points in my career, where actually I think that would have been really, really good for me to have heard, is actually how to deal with the stress, how to deal with the pressure, how to deal with the fact that you need to order that roll of fabric, but actually you can't afford to next week, but you need to find a way to, because you've got customer orders that you need to fulfill, and that struggle is really real.
If you believe in the cause, I think you're willing to put that money in and then hopefully get it back.
I thought another thing that you know you don't get hardly any kind of knowledge on at the beginning is the whole negotiating and financial side of things. You know,
Yeah, you make it up as you go along, right?
Yeah.
Definitely.
And, like, it depends on who you're working with.
You just go, yeah, I'll do that for free.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm working for you.
I still make it up.
Yeah.
Still to this day.
Making
My
it-
rate is...
How much do you want? I'm like, this amount?
I think for me, I think always keeping yourself in check as well and making sure that you don't ever get lazy. Because if you get good opportunities and you enjoy them for while they last, and you don't want to make that last because it won't last forever, you do have to keep working and you do have to keep going. It doesn't matter where you are in your career, how many opportunities are being thrown at you. If you don't take that seriously and you don't use that to your advantage, then they will just disappear. So I think... yeah, like as you guys are saying, like just keep, you got to keep grinding no matter like where you are in your career.
I think something we touched on just before actually everyone joined us is that the relationships that you make in your early career are the most fundamental cornerstone of your black book of go-to when you need something. You know, I said before that there's people I went to university with in different departments who are still my go-to when I need to collaborate on something. They're people I've worked with for years, either graphics, metalwork.
Do you think that's because you've actually built like a proper relationship with them?
Yeah, well, true. And what I was going to say to this point was they were the person when I needed a favor and I couldn't afford to pay for their services. We were all at similar points in our career at one point. They were the person that said, hey, Josh, you know, I'll hook you up. I'll help you out. I'll do that for you. I'll sort that out. You know, and then, you know, with no question of, you know, at that early point of the career, what are you going to do back for me? But, you know, when the opportunity arose, you know, I paid them back tenfold with gratuity and favor and kind and, you know, work back. You know, I had a friend that was like, oh, suddenly made really successful, and they helped me for years on stuff when I was really early. And I was like, well, I'm going to make you a beautiful suit for that first time that you're, you know, receiving an award. And I think it's a very tough time in the industry where obviously everyone should get paid, but and they definitely should for working, but understanding the importance of relationships is what I wanted to say, because there are people that have helped me out so much, and I'm super grateful, and they continue to help me out.
In that your position, that you were both from like a similar level.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be someone who's like an already, you know, a big corporation or a client.
Yeah.
Who's then asking you to work for free.
I agree, and I think,
Doing it together,
yeah, and I think for everyone in this room, seeing people at your own level in different facilities and syllabuses and industries and working together to help one another is so important, and maintaining that relationship and then not cutting it off because one person gets really big and then the other person doesn't, because the industries are so small and you never know, like those relationships you should just try and keep forever, because they're going to be the people that your foundation, you know, throughout the career.
I think surrounding yourself with like-minded people who want the same end goal as you, because you're going to be in the same position and you're not going to feel nervous about being like, I don't actually know how to do this. And then that person will be like, oh, well, I don't know how to do this. You help me. I help you. I mean, my whole like career has been based on that, because I'm with such a good creative hub and everyone is like trying to be their own boss. And I think this is like the year of everyone kind of being an entrepreneur. Like I know all my friends are doing their own thing right now, and it's so nice to see because everyone's scratching each other's back, you know?
This moves me on really nicely to like collaboration and what that means, and like cross collaboration between industries as well. Savannah, we spoke a little bit earlier this year about so you'd like got your first book published and like things were going really well, but you were expected to do a lot of your own marketing. So if you could just talk a little bit about that, that'd be fantastic.
So publishing's weird because people think you like get this book deal and then it's like, oh, well, you've got all these opportunities that suddenly open up to you, and that's not the case ever, really. A lot of times authors are expected to sort of do a lot of the work themselves. And so, well, going back a little bit, from when I first published Graffiti, I think I told you about this too, I did these sort of, I call them now poetry films, which were kind of to go along with the book, but that involved a lot of moving parts and a lot of people, and it's all sort of in service of the same thing, which means it's, you know, a lot of fun and really exciting, and it all feels like it's working towards something. But yeah, so a lot of the marketing for the book is all me. And naturally, that means I can't do everything myself. So, no, it's a similar thing where I think, like what we were just talking about, a lot of times people with similar end goals sort of band together, and exactly the same. It's a matter of sort of lifting everyone up. And actually, you find that, because I guess you'd worry, well, aren't they like your competition or something? And normally you find that's not the case at all, because you're not really ever directly competing with people in the same industry as you. So a lot of the times it's much more valuable to, as we said, sort of build those relationships, and relationships are endlessly more valuable to sort of cultivate in the long run.
What about you guys? Have you had any really like vital collaborations throughout your career that without those people, those individual artists, maybe from other industries? You know?
I think collaborating in music is such a common thing and such an important thing, especially as a producer. You're constantly getting in the studio with other people, and even as like an A&R as well. Sometimes I'll ring my mate up who's an A&R for a completely different company, and I'll be like, what do you think about this vocalist? And she'll give her opinion. My best friend, he's like a director and a videographer, so completely separate sort of world, but we work on a lot of projects together, whether that be like following me on tour he's done in the past, or working on like content ideas for bigger brands and stuff, which we do together. And it's fun. Like collaborating with your mates is the best time, because you're basically just bouncing off each other and you're doing what you always wanted to do and just having fun with it, rather than getting like told to do this project. You're like, right, let's sit in a room and come up with a load of ideas and then present it to a load of people and see what we can do. And as soon as like someone accepts that, you're just like, high fives all round, sick, and we're getting paid for it. This is brilliant. So I think collaborating is probably one of my favourite parts of the job, and collaborating with people in all different parts of the industry, because everything's so close-knit. We're all creatives at the end of the day, so it's kind of endless what you can do.
Yeah, it definitely helps like spread awareness of your brand as well. Like with my magazine Wave, we just threw a party with No Mercy in the 411, and like No Mercy is an organisation run by BBK, so it's like the same people as like Jammer, Skepta and Gigs, and all those sort of people came to our party, and it's just great because, you know, people now hear of your brand, and it's the same thing for us. And it's fun as well, and it just makes perfect sense, because even collaborating with shoots and music, like a photographer and music, and it just helps spread awareness of your brand. I think it gets it out there, it builds a platform for you. I think it's definitely key, but I wouldn't say oversaturating in collaborations. I think it's quality over quantity. It's definitely got to be a brand that relates to you and you like, and obviously people that you want to work with as well.
Yeah. I'd love to touch on like the effects of social media and whether or not that's helped or hindered what you are doing with your careers. Like you started on YouTube, so we have like social media to thank for that. But it's interesting to see people's thoughts on how social media is affecting the creative industries.
Yeah, I kind of have a lot to say about that. So yeah, that's kind of how I got my start. So the two are sort of intrinsically linked, which presents its own issues, because social media is bad, and then a lot of the time you just feel like escaping from it completely, but you can't, because it's actually in parts with the job that you're doing, right? So, and it didn't always used to be like that for writers. There's been sort of a push in the industry where publishers will actually they'll be more inclined to sign you if you have a social media presence. I think it's similar with acting as well. And a lot of things, I think if you've got that presence, then there's...
Say pretty much everything now.
No,
like
right.
From modeling all the way through.
Right, yeah. So everything is sort of linked to that, and I think that can create some sort of troubling links with sort of self-image and what those numbers mean to, you know, your personhood and how those two are connected. But... So yeah, I think it can be a good thing. I think it can be a really beneficial thing, but I think it's something that needs to be managed.
I mean, yeah.
There's pros and cons to it.
Yeah. I mean, from an illustration standpoint, it's great because I mean you can have like an online gallery in like seconds, you know. I mean, it's not like maybe for you guys it could be. Oh, sorry, it's not gonna fall off then. Yeah, that wasn't part of it. No. It's really good. I think because for you guys, I mean, maybe not your work's more complex, but it's not just like what you see is what you get in like a straight image, you know. But for me, you can just literally like, shift stuff out. You haven't got to feel embarrassed when you show them your work. You just be like, there you go, to the world. So it is good, but you do become a bit of a slave to it, I think, as well. Yeah. You know, you feel like you have to constantly like upload and kind of go to that
Keep on top of
because you might get a positive reaction from it.
I think people are trying to be obviously far too competitive with numbers, thinking that obviously the bigger number you have next to your name, the more important you are, the more successful you are. And it really couldn't be further from the truth whatsoever. I mean, it only takes one really important person to love your work that they come across on social media. They can change your career forever. They can give you that high-paid job that double bounces over someone's 12 years experience in the industry because that one person fell in love with your work and found it. And I think rather than everyone thinking that it's just about numbers, engagement, interaction, it's about making sure, I would say without being too like stupid, like being really true to the product that you want to showcase, because if you are and that one person falls in love with it and that one person could be your next person that hires you or that next person who gives you that freelance job, that is far more important than obsessing over continuously creating content or continuously flooding people's channels with nonsense.
I think there's something to be said too for sort of slow growth. So I've been sort of on YouTube for maybe 8 years now. And a lot of the people who are commenting on everything still and buying my book are the ones who like, I've been watching you since you were 14. And they've just been in it for the long haul. So you're right. So you can look for this sort of massive boost all at once. But really, when that happens, I've found that none of those people are loyal and none of those people actually care about you. It's sort of just like jumping on a wave that everyone else is and that they think is exciting. So yeah, I think there's something to be said for sort of that slow sort of, I don't know, getting to know the people who support you and sort of keeping them in mind as you
and they've sort of seen you evolve, as you go along, right?
Exactly.
I find it really hard, being completely honest. I look at social media and it doesn't matter how well I'm doing, but I really struggle seeing how other people are doing, and I find myself comparing what I'm doing to other people constantly, which is only ever really damaging, and it's only ever something that I need to stop doing. But I wondered if that's something that you guys feel is similar in any way.
I definitely go through that like every day. I mean, you have one days where you do something great and you post it and you feel amazing about it, and then the next day you see someone else doing something great and it kind of brings you down. And unfortunately, that is just how our mind works. But I think, you know, you just kind of have to, if anything, it kind of pushes us, I think, to thrive a bit more as well.
Competitiveness, right? It can
be a good
thing, in a way.
We need that. Try to keep yourself in check.
And it's kind of inspiring as well sometimes. I take a lot of inspiration from things that pop up on my Explore page sometimes. You know, you might see something interesting that could just trigger another, like a shoot idea or something. So there's definitely pros and cons. I just think it's finding the balance of how well to use it. Don't go on it all the time. Maybe just use it as like a website where you just post your work and you go off of it and then you just come on it when you need to.
I think also you've got to look at why you want to use it for work. You know, is the goal to get more likes than anyone else? Because in my opinion, it's not. It's completely the opposite. It's to showcase something that's really true and really authentic. And, you know, I might post something. My social channels it started off as just kind of documenting me making suits all that time ago, just literally cutting out a pattern, take a photograph of it, post it. And then it grew into essentially my brand's Instagram profile, but then like if you were to look at a big brand, it's like it doesn't follow one person, it follows just a brand developing, but so it's a bit of a strange comparison. But you know, I might post something and it might get the least comments and likes or views ever, but we might get 3 customers that say I love it, and we might sell something. And like, what's really about? It's making someone fall in love with your work. And that's way more important to stay completely, as I said, just sort of banging on about it, true to what you want to create and not be dictated to by an audience that you don't know or predominantly you don't know.
I remember I was showing my friend once like a profile that I'd found on Instagram, and I was like, look at all these pictures, look how amazing they are. And they said, you can't like them that much, you haven't liked any of their pictures. And I remember thinking like, oh God, yeah, no, I haven't. And then I was like, wait, that's so stupid. And I don't think it is anything to do with that. And it just goes to show it's like a prime example of me not liking something but not physically liking it. And I think that yeah, it's just like a ridiculous, thing, a pattern that we've all fallen into, but something that I think we're going to see a huge change on social media in the coming years. People are speaking out about how they don't want to see that, they don't want to hear about it, and they don't think it's important. And I think eventually, like, that's going to change.
It's quite weird how we're all like controlled by like someone's thumb, if they do that or not.
I think as well, if you ever get in that mindset of like looking at someone's Instagram and you feel a bit crap about yourself, you have to remember is like they are just uploading the best bits of their life, and they're and the same goes for everybody. Like, I'm not going to upload a picture of me sitting in a hotel room on my own for 5 hours. That's not. I'm going to upload a picture of me like DJing at the club that I played at, and it looks really fun. So I think you just need to take it with a little bit of a pinch of salt and give yourself a little.
So, is there anything anyone would like to add before I wrap it up a little bit? So with Daisie, we're hoping to grow a platform which is about the collaboration and about connecting artists with one another. And we hope that, without following the trend of follow counts and likes and number of views, we can hopefully make a more supportive and less competitive environment and really have a community of people rather than just a user base. Is there anything that you guys would like to talk about that you've got coming up in the future of your careers? Anything you want to plug?
Everyone looks so shameless. They're like... Ugh.
Well, Savannah, you got your book coming out. When can people expect that?
Yeah. So my debut novel is called The Truth About Keeping Secrets, and it's coming out March 7th. So.
Wonderful.
I'm going to do animation hopefully soon. So in about 50 years, there might be a cartoon out.
I've just had a release on Defected, so if you're feeling really nice, you can go download it. My manager would tell me if I didn't do this.
Issue 3 of Wave Mag is coming out in January. And yeah, we're going to be having a release party and hopefully a party in between, and they are really fun. They actually go off, so try and come to them.
I just launched my latest capsule couture collection within Fashion Week last week, and we launched a video on my website, which is joshuakainstore.com. Thank you guys for coming. We hope that you've been inspired. Keep working away. The industry has plenty of room for all of us. And if you want to stay for some drinks, then we're just down that little corridor there. Thank you for coming. Have a wonderful night.
Thank you.
And thank you guys.